As we're getting started, I know Ndidi, our president, is going to have a few words for those of us on the phone here today, but I want to welcome you. My name is Laura Dolnick. If you don't already know me, I'm the chair of the Education and Development Committee. As we get started here, we'll have Ndidi say a few things. Ndidi Yautcher, as you know, is our president. And then Ndidi, if you wouldn't mind turning it over to me, and I'll say a few things to introduce Krista, and we'll go from there. Ndidi?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you, Laura. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ndidi Yautcher, and I'm very excited to be here, and I'm very excited to hear Krista's presentation today about the Wall of Fear. So excited about that. I just wanted to make a few announcements prior to the webinar starting. One is just wanted to talk a little bit about our schedule, upcoming schedule. So because us Wisconsinites enjoy our summertime, we will not be having any webinars in the month of July, so we'll have July off. There will, however, be a virtual coaches networking meeting this month and next month. So this month, next week, Tuesday on June 18th, we will have the virtual coaches network. And it's just a great opportunity for the coaches to get together online, to share some resources and tools and talk about their businesses. So it's kind of sharing and helping each other out, the different coaches out. So an opportunity to do that, that's next week, Tuesday. If you're interested in that, make sure you register for that. And then we'll also have one next month in the month of July. Some other upcoming meetings that I wanted you all to be aware of is we will have we called it the Coach Connections meeting, which you might change the name, but this would be a live event. We had one earlier this spring in April, so we'll have another one coming up September 12th. So I wanted to make sure that you mark your calendars for that. This Coach Connections meeting will be an opportunity to meet live. We'll have 3 meetings running usually at the same time, one in Madison, one in Milwaukee, and one in Walsall. And we'll have the details of that when it gets a little bit closer, but I wanted to at least for at least you to be aware of that, so you can mark that on your calendar. So that would be September 12th. We will also have, looking at my list of upcoming events here, the annual members meeting. So usually once a year we get together to celebrate our members and talk about all that we accomplished this time in the year 2019, and that meeting is going to be October 17th. Once we have the venue and the times available, we'll make sure that that will also be included in the event calendar on the website. So October 17th, make sure you mark that down, that we will have that, and we'll have the venue. We're looking at Madison as a venue, so once we get the details ironed out, we'll send the details, we'll send that out. And lastly, and also more exciting, is we will have this year, it's finally, I should say it's all finalized now. So ICF Wisconsin will be hosting, Wisconsin will be hosting the MRAC, so the Midwest Regional Coaches Conference, the ICF Regional Coaches Conference. So that will be in 2020. So Milwaukee has never hosted it before. Wisconsin has never hosted it before, but we will be having it in Milwaukee next year. And the dates are September 30th through October 2nd, 2020. So very, very excited about that. They are currently in the process of putting the different committees together. So if any of you are interested in volunteering, then please reach out to Nicole Polito, and she can provide you some insights about the different committees. And if we'll be happy to have you help volunteer and help out to put that together. So in the interest of time, I'm going to turn it back to Laura, and you can introduce our speaker today.
Very good. Very good. Well, if you don't know Krista Morrissey, by the end of this presentation, you'll know her well. Krista is a PCC level life and leadership coach, and she's the chair of our outreach committee of the ICF Wisconsin chapter. Her coaching practice is Choices Coaching and Consulting, and she's also a 2-time best-selling author. This is my own ad, Krista. I hope you don't mind. Okay. But I can't help but say that my experience with Krista is that her spirit exudes contagiousness. It's just the positivity is ridiculous. And so I can't say enough about your positivity and how contagious that is. In addition to her coaching, she's also very adept and seasoned at designing, hosting, and facilitating women's retreats, much around similar topics to what we're going to hear about today. Krista wants her clients to feel heard and appreciated. She wants her clients to laugh and to say, I want more of that. And I got a little bit of a chill on my leg here, so I'm setting you up well here, I suppose. But she's like, oh, no pressure. But I suspect by the end of this, we're all going to be feeling that same thing. So Krista, glad to have you with us. It's yours.
All right. Thank you. Well, hello, everyone that is on. I'm honored to be asked. Actually, I was a little nervous at first and looked at Laura and said, you sure? So this is, I am breaking ground on webinar today. So hopefully I won't do anything that'll be too embarrassing. I want to talk a little bit about the topic today before I put the PowerPoint slides up. The wall of fear is something that came from my practice of, and I literally stumbled into it. And when I say stumbled into it, I stumbled into it. So I'm big on, thank you, Meredith. I'm big on movement and coaching. I think when we change our geography, we change our perspective. And I also believe that movement unconstipates our whole being, mind, body, spirit, emotions. So when I can be outside coaching, love it. I spent all day Monday, all day Tuesday out on the kettle moraine trails, in the parks, and you use nature as props. And there's just something magical about it. And so where did this wall of fear come from? About a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was coaching a gentleman and we were out on one of the kettle moraine trails. And we got off the trail and I kind of knew this property. And we were talking about what was holding him back and the fear he had. And we came around the corner and here's this old stone wall. And there's just the wall that faced us and the side wall and everything else had kind of rotted and fell down. And so I said, let's play with this. And so we stood about 20 yards from the wall. And I asked him to describe this fear and then tell me what everything he saw. And he could describe all the nature, everything around us. So at about 20 yards. So then I asked him to move in 5 yards. Now, what are you feeling in your body? What are you seeing? And he described it a little bit. I asked him to move in. Now we're 10 yards away. Now it started to become real. His face kind of started glowing, so I knew there was some sweat going on. And we talked about the fear, what was happening in the body, where were his thoughts, and what happened to the whole nature, the world around him that he had described. It had shrunk. And it's like his peripheral vision was starting to go away. So then we moved into 5 yards. And I saw his whole posture change. And literally, his face was more aglow. He was starting to perspire, and he was talking about it. And then for some reason, I just went with it. And I said, okay, now you need to come nose to nose with your fear. And I asked him to put his nose against a certain stone on the wall that he had identified as his fear. And I watched the sweat trickle down. And I watched his body tense up. And he said, I am completely engulfed in this fear. It owns me. Here's what's happening to my stomach, my head. And so I had him back away from the wall, and we talked about that. And that is where this wall of fear started. And what happened that day is we finished coaching. We were back at the parking lot. He left. I went back to the wall, and I tried it myself. And I kind of got a little tense. So I said, I need to build something from here. So that's where it started. So now I'm gonna bring in the PowerPoint. And if you did not print out the participant packet, you may at least want to have a piece of paper because you're going to want to draw. This is interactive. As coaches, I'm going to have you go through what we're going to talk about today. So Laura shared about me, so I'm gonna blow through some slides here. Sorry. This one, and I want to tell you about the fear. The reason it's here is the lower right corner, where I authored a chapter in 2 books. That was a big fear for me. If I walked into a conference or a hotel, and there was a conference going on, and someone said, oh my gosh, our speaker's plane didn't make it, we don't know what we're going to do. I'd feel comfortable walking over and saying, hey, what's your topic? And maybe I could put something together quick. But the idea of getting thoughts out of my head through the pen on paper was very frightening. And so those of you that write well, thank you. It's amazing how much time I spent on just 2 chapters. So this is what I do. I speak, I'm a life coach, organization development specialist. So everything in my world is about people, process, tools. So I wanted to share this because I want to enlighten you on my philosophy so that some of the things I say today, you can put the pieces of the Krista puzzle together. Soon after I became a coach, a certified coach, 2 questions kept popping up. And the one was, hey, how do I know I need a coach? And one day I said, boredom, alignment, and hunger. And I said, one day you wake up, you're a little bored. Life is just, but you say, I'm in a good place. I should like this. So we either take on more work at work, we volunteer in the community, we go, oh, that feels good. But all we did was put a Band-Aid on it. Then you wake up one day and you're out of alignment. Some people call it balance. And no matter what you do, it's like wearing 2 left shoes. You just can't get in sync. And here's where the great stories start. And the stories we tell ourselves is, hey, I'm the breadwinner. This is a family business. I went to 4 years of college, 8 years of college. I carry the benefits. I'm a woman who made it in a man's world. I'm a man who made it in a woman's world. All my neighbors tell me I have the best job in the world. And you keep telling yourself stories until you grab onto one and you go, oh, yeah, I need to be here. Again, that's a Band-Aid. Then one day you wake up and you're hungry. You work all day, you're hungry. You go to bed, you're hungry. You wake up tomorrow and you're hungry. And it's not a physical hunger. It's a soulful, passionate hunger to be doing something that you're aligned with, to be aligned with the purpose and the reason that you're here. And it's usually at alignment and hunger that people reach out, not often at boredom. So that's the first question. The second question they ask is, okay, what does a life coach do for me? And I speak from my perspective. And I'm only going to talk about the first 2 bullet points and the last, because the one in the middle, they're very coach-like, and I think you will all get them. But I say, I'll be your fog light in your mirror. Think about a foggy day. You leave your house. You've driven your road hundreds of times. But the fog plays with your depth perception. The depth perception plays with your confidence. And you just want to get in the fetal position and go back home. And we stop and we freeze. And so as a fog light, when we're stuck in the muck of life, I can shine the light out there and go, hey, what's here? I'll be your mirror. Self-reflection is critical, and candid self-reflection is even more critical. And then what I have discovered very quickly, I was coaching inside of corporate world about 10, 12 years before I became professionally certified. And I realized after my certification that the last bullet point is probably the most powerful thing I can do for my clients is I ask questions from the outside so they can answer them from the inside. Which means I'm different than a sister, a friend, a mom, or dad, is that I don't really have a dog in their fight, so to say. So I can poke the hive and ask the questions that others won't. So that gives you a little bit of insight into my philosophy and my belief as a coach, along with the movement. So today, here's what I would like. I want you to grab whatever hat you're sitting with right now that you brought onto this call, and I want you to take it off and set it aside. And the hat I want you to have on today, right now, is the client. And be ready to build your wall of fear, face your fears. You're going to deal with your fears, move from your fears, and really, we're going to talk about how do you change your relationship. Because this is a tool that I would love for you to be able to use in whatever capacity and whatever practice you have to help move your clients. And know that one of the most important things is the timing of it. It's not a tool that you come out of the gate with. You have to have built that relationship with them. So that leads into today. Here's the chunks of what we're going to go through on the left, those 5 chunks. And on the right is the competencies that we're going to go after today. And, the first competency, establishing trust and intimacy. You're going to kind of see it. We're not going to go as in depth into that one, but it's definitely going to be present. All right, so love Maya Angelou, but her quote is wonderful. Hope and fear cannot occupy the same space. You have to invite one to stay, because only one or the other is going to be present. All right, so what are you afraid of? I want you to get that in your head right now, and I want you to go beyond spiders. I want you to go beyond snakes. I want you to go beyond public speaking, possibly. And what are you afraid of? What triggers fear in you? And when we are really fearful, our body has a fear language, and it speaks to us. So Meredith, if you could open up the lines, because I'd like to hear what people say. What does fear do to you? I'd like to hear from a couple of you. When you're really afraid, what happens?
So for those who are on the call, everyone's muted right now. You have the ability to unmute yourself. So you might have to, in order for it to appear, you might have to scroll, use your mouse or cursor to scroll down near the bottom, and you can click on the microphone to unmute. If you're on the phone, I think you'll have to do it from your phone directly. The other thing, if you can't find it, you can I think you can raise your hand in a meeting and I can unmute you.
All right, so you identified a fear. What does that fear do to you?
Krista, it's Lori.
Hey, Lori.
Hi. So for me, it makes me feel small and almost makes me feel like I'm getting into a crouching position.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that.
Krista, it's Laura. For me, it's I can feel a tightening in my belly.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Hey, Krista, it's Holly. How are you?
Good. Holly, how are you?
Wonderful. So for me, it causes a feeling of self-doubt, which shows up oftentimes as fast breathing and really like an inability to think or a fog.
Yes. Great. Thank you for sharing, Holly. And for the rest of you, the point of this is I want you to understand so that you can translate this with your clients is, what does fear feel like for you? And where in your body is it? Because that's very important. Okay, so let's keep going here. Chapman University in California did a study. And when I started using this, I got way too fancy when I first said, hey, I'm going to build something around wall of fear. I put way too much data, way too much science in it. And one day I saw that a client had that glazed over look. And then I was with a group of small business owners and the same thing. So, because what I try to do is say, okay, this is your fear. What domain is it? Frankly, my clients don't really care what domain their fear is in. They just say, hey, Krista, let's deal with it. But for those of you that like some data, here you go. There are 10 domains of fear that Chapman University has identified. So, and that is in your participant packet for anybody that wants to latch onto that. So pretty clear definition of fear. It's an unpleasant emotion and it's triggered by a belief that you have that someone or something is dangerous or is a threat or might cause pain. So know that your fears come from your beliefs, and your beliefs come from your path, your journey in life. It's emotional response, and we've heard about the fight, flight, or freeze, and we all react differently to it. Some get very confrontational, some avoid. Sometimes, or often, we discover something within our fear. So here's a little quiz, and I just want you to answer this to yourself. The percentage of things feared that will never take place. What percentage do you think that is? 60%. Percentage of things feared that happened in the past and cannot be changed. What's your guess? 30%. Percent of things that are considered to be, percent of things feared that are considered to be insignificant issues. 90%. Whew. And then percent of things feared in relation to health that will not happen. 88%. And the number of Americans who have a diagnosed phobia of some type, 6.3 million. So when I read this, what caught my attention was the second one, the 30%. The percent of things feared that happened in the past that can't be changed, but we carry them forward. we bring that fear forward, and we don't let go of it. And that's often in my practice where I have to go with the clients. As we identify their fear, we have to follow that thread back a little bit to find out where it was rooted. Okay, so fear, it's not a psychological problem. It's an educational one. Fear is not the problem. It's how we hold on to it that is. So your fear can be pain or it can be power. But just know we need to have education around fear. And what comes to mind when I talk about this is one of my sons, when he was in grade school, we had this safari group come in. And of course, they had this 10-foot long white snake, and the guy's got it wrapped around his neck. And the whole crowd is kind of pushing back in their chairs. And he asked for a volunteer to come up. And my husband looks at me like, go ahead. I'm not going up there. And a lady goes up. And the head of the snake that was around his neck comes up, and it's like they're looking eye to eye, and she reaches out and she just pets it. And then she reached over and petted it all the way down to its tail. And you could just kind of see the crowd relax. And then the gentleman went on to educate us that, not all snakes are dangerous. And so that pops in my mind often, that it's an education for us with fears. I didn't want to be educated enough that day to go touch it, that's for sure. All right, so everyone is afraid of something. Everyone. Okay. So here's where we're going to get active. You have this in your packet, this wall of fear, and you're going to build your wall of fear. This is where you're going to experience this. And so I've got Lisa Robb that's going to go through the activity with me, because I want you to be able to see it as we experience it, much like I explained when I was out in the woods with the gentleman. So 1 fear per brick. Fears that you have, and they're yours. No one's going to share unless you so choose, but Lisa and I are going to kind of do a little bit of a role model for you. So fill it out, 1 fear per brick. You surely don't have to have the entire page filled out, but it'd be nice if you had at least 3 fears on this page. So I'll give you 2 minutes. We got about 30 seconds left. All right. So some of you might have, I got to get this off my screen. Some of you might have a wall that looks similar to this. But for everyone on the call, I would like you to pick the 1 fear that really stands out, that is the strongest for you. And when you have that, I'm going to ask you to have your piece of paper, your packet with you here. Okay, we're going to talk about shattering the fears. And when I say shatter, it is about changing your relationship with it. So, Lisa Robb, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, hey, Meredith.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I get Lisa larger on the screen?
That is your control.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think I'm going side by side mode.
Okay.
It doesn't get her super large, but it reduces the size of your slides.
Yeah.
Do you have to have your slides shared right now?
I do not.
Okay, so you could stop share, and I think
Okay.
Lisa would get, her picture might get bigger.
Okay, so can you say something, Lisa, so you're on?
Well, hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. All right, so Lisa, thank you for volunteering and being courageous enough to step into this. And like all coaches, I'll ask the rest of you to please stay on mute so that we don't hear any gasps or nonverbals that you have, and just to watch with Lisa and I. And we're not going to go real deep today, because we could go down a rabbit hole, but I want you to see what this might look like and to have some experience. And I want you to do with your sheet, if you so will, what we're going to do with ours to take your wall of fear. All right, so Lisa.
Yep.
Which fear did you choose from your wall?
The big one for me right now is I'm creating a coaching program that I've done for the past 2 years, but it's a 9-month accountability program. And I have a fear that no one is going to sign up for it.
Okay. When does it start?
September.
Okay, perfect. All right. So talk a little bit about that fear that no one will sign up.
I'm not really sure where it comes from. I've done it 2 years, but because it's like different people are invited each year, there's just that unknown of if this is going to connect with people, and the feeling of spending so much time and effort creating something and then feeling like if no one comes that it wasn't valuable, or just the embarrassment of, and it's my perceived embarrassment, but embarrassment that you're not creating things that are worthwhile.
Okay, great. Okay, so Lisa, what I'd like you to do is to take your wall of fear.
Yep.
And hold it, and hold it at arm's length.
Okay.
And for the rest of you that are watching, again, normally this is up in a room, and I've got them walking to a wall that has their fear on it. So as you look at your fear, Lisa, tell me what else you can see around you.
I can see my computer. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I can see my computer, I can see my deck, I can see my bookcase, I can see my lamp.
Okay.
My dog laying on the deck.
Okay. All right. And so it's the middle of June. And as you look at that fear of, no one will sign up, what are your thoughts, and how does it feel physically?
Definitely I have a tightness in my chest, and like my heart is starting to race.
Okay. So take that and move it about 6 inches closer. And now it's July.
Mm-hmm.
And as you look at that brick on your wall of fear, tell me now what you can see around you.
I can still see my computer. I can still see my lamp and my deck.
Okay. That fear that no one will show up, what's it look like, feel like, sound like?
Well, I felt a little bit better when you asked me to, like, what else I could see around it. That was like comforting, but then when I focused in on the brick again, I almost felt like it moved up to my throat, like where I felt like I was choking.
Okay. All right. What happens to your productivity, your ability to do with this feeling?
Oh, it's I mean, I'm not very productive when I'm feeling like this. I want to freeze. I want to not move forward. I don't want to do anything.
Okay. So now, Lisa, I'm going to ask you to move it halfway to your face,
Okay.
and it's August. What do you see?
I mostly see this brick. I mean, I can see only a little bit around me. I can still see my computer and a little bit of the deck, but mostly it's this
Okay.
brick.
How's your being?
I feel like it's affecting my whole body now. It's not really concentrated. It's like my whole body is just uncomfortable.
Okay. What's the result of that?
Just feeling like you want to hide, or definitely you're not taking any action.
Okay. So now, Lisa, put that brick of no one will show up right against your nose because it's next week. What do you see?
Nothing, just the brick.
What's going on with Lisa?
It's kind of an acceptance, but also because it just is what it is at this point. Yeah, but it's all encompassing.
What is that?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
It's the being completely within the space of uncertainty, and it feels like almost like being underwater. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. So Lisa, we're gonna stop this here.
Okay.
So kudos to you.
Thank you
very much. Thank you very much for that. And just for those of you that are watching, we didn't practice, and I chose not to. Wanted to let it free form where it would go today. And when I do this with clients, it's much longer. Sometimes it takes the whole session. So now here's what I like to do. I'm going to go back to sharing the presentation. Okay. Okay. So let's unmute for a second, Meredith, or unmute yourselves. And I would like to hear, not anything around, hey, Lisa, how'd you feel here? I simply want to know what you felt as you watched, or what you felt as you went through this, if you were holding your wall of fear and moving it with us. Don't be afraid to jump in.
This is Emily. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So my thought was when you asked Lisa to bring it to her face, I was like, oh my God. Like I was just feeling that intensity in me. I'm like, well, now what? You know, like there's got to be a solution quick. So it was just that intense, like, oh, yeah, it was interesting.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. And Emily, I'm glad you experienced that, because now you will know potentially what your clients are going to go through.
Yeah, and how I was feeling it for my thing, so thank you.
Right, yeah. Let's take another one.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Sharon.
Hello, Sharon.
As the brick on paper was put to Lisa's nose, and I was thinking about my greatest fear, which is loss of family nearest to me, such as husband and son.
Yeah.
I felt a little like, okay, here's where my spiritual religious training comes in. There's nothing left but prayer. But that's a problem sometimes when dealing with clients. So I was feeling overwhelmed at that point as to, because I coach bereavement and loss, it's like,
Yes.
okay, where does that put me when I'm trying to help these people at loss also with that greatest fear?
You know, thank you for sharing that, because that was one of the biggest challenges I had. That day when that gentleman stepped nose to nose with the wall, and I saw him sweat and I saw his body tense up, it impacted me. And in that moment, you know, your training comes back and says, hey, come on, you're supposed to be in a level 3 listening. And so I actually went through it a couple times with my life coach to say, hey, I've got to get better at not reacting to the client. So great self-awareness.
Yep.
Anybody else want to share? If we take one more?
Krista, this is Lisa.
Yes.
What surprised me about this was, as you told me to bring the paper closer to me, I definitely was feeling worse. Like the closer it got, the worse I felt. And it's almost like the closer it got to September, the worse I felt. But when you said, what can you see around you? When, like, the closer it got, when you drew my attention to what I could see around me, even if I couldn't hear it, like I hear birds chirping or whatever, it was really powerful how that calmed my body down so much to be looking on the outside. And that's really difficult, if not impossible, when it's by your nose.
Right.
Maybe hear things, but I thought that was a really interesting aspect, because sometimes we can let fear, like we can become overcome with fear.
Yes.
But when you said, what do you see around you? It was like a calming, like, okay, it's closer, but now that you said that, I feel like it's further away.
Okay. So if I had been in the same room with you, Lisa, I would have been really paying attention to your body movement, what was happening. Being on Zoom, the one thing I noticed is the first time I asked you, you had the sheet out to move it, you know, in 6 inches, you moved it quick. And then I said, so that's July. And then moved, you know, June to July, then to August, and you moved it slow. And then September, you brought it in really slow. So that was interesting. And there's 2 things about that vision. Is fear is like a racehorse that puts the blinders on, and that seems like that's all we can see, and we get all consumed with it. The second component, depending on where the client goes, is like Lisa, when I said, what else do you see? The ability to stop putting all the mental energy on the fear to say, hey, there's something else here. Okay. So I would like to take you, I'm just going to switch this up quick so that we can go through this. Is the second page of your packet here is, I'd like you to take that one fear, the biggest fear you had, the biggest brick, and fill it in the cell that says fear. And while you're doing that, I'll talk about, in my practice, what has shown up for me is that with the clients, their fear is real, it's perceived, or it's inherited. Okay. And it helps for them to figure out which one it is. So what do you mean by an inherited fear? My mother couldn't swim. She was deathly afraid of water. Even when we would drive along the river, she would sit really close to my father in the car instead of her passenger seat to get farther away from the water. So I grew up with this tremendous fear of water. And then, as fate would have it, in 8th grade was after softball practice, swimming at the coach's house. His son and a couple of his buddies thought it'd be fun to dunk all of us girls. And they dunked us all. And his son pulled me up, and I went to gasp for air, and he shoved me back down with my mouth open. And if it hadn't have been for me grabbing certain body parts, I don't think he would have let go of me to let me come to the surface. So I've got this fear from my mother. I experienced, ingesting water. Now I'm laying on the deck coughing and thinking I'm not going to make it. So now as I grow and I have 3 boys, what do you think I did? I made sure they had swim lessons from 3 years old up through junior life saving. And so that inherited fear, I had to learn how to live with it and deal with it and realize it's not my own. So I want you to identify in that column, is your fear real, perceived, or inherited? And then what is the impact to you carrying this fear around with you? And you do carry it. It never goes away if you haven't addressed it. So you've got the fear, you've got real, perceived, inherited, then you've got the impact. Now I would like you to answer the question, if I did not fear blank, you're going to write the fear in there, what would I be doing? And again, this is a little premature in the process, but we're here, let's go through this. If I did not fear, I'll use Lisa's, that no one will sign up, what would I be doing? And so I'd like to take 2 or 3 to participate in this as well. You don't have to go into a great explanation of your fear. If you're willing enough, share your fear, the impact, and then what would you be doing if you didn't spend physical, emotional time and energy on this fear? Come on, somebody be brave.
Hi, Krista. It's Yang Yi.
Oh, Yang Yi.
You guys hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So my fear is I've been divorced for 3 years now, and so my fear is that if I open up to someone, my biggest fear is for my kids. What if I do some damage to them if I start getting into relationships or start, doing those dating and things like that. So that's like my biggest fear is damaging my kids or hurting my kids.
All right. So what's the process? All right, Yang Yi, what's the impact of carrying that fear around?
A huge impact. I think it weighs me down. I think it allows me to think way too much about someone, way too much about the relationship, way too much about everything involved, and it probably freezes me quite a bit from what I probably want to do. Okay.
So, Yang Yi, if you weren't fearing getting into a relationship and causing damage to your children, if you didn't fear that, what would you be doing?
I think I would just relax more. I think I would be okay with opening up in relationships and just kind of letting the relationship flow instead of thinking too much, like too soon. yeah, it would just flow.
Great. So Yang Yi, what does a Yang Yi that is relaxed, is open up to love, and is letting a relationship flow look like?
It would be happy. It would be taking it day by day, not being so serious. It would be kind of embracing the challenges as they come. It would, of course, incorporate my kids. It would allow me to not be too protective of myself as well as my kids.
Yang Yi broke the ice. Let's take another brave soul. Okay, let's move on. I'll let you all sit with that. But this is a big question here. If I did not fear blank, what would I be doing? And it helps us see beyond fear. And this is where I start the transition with the client of changing their relationship with it. So I've got a little bit in here on the science of fear. And again, not a lot. I've taken a lot out because I got too smart for my own good when I started doing this. And I lost focus on helping the clients transform and got wrapped up into wooing them with the science. But here's some beliefs. And we all know that our beliefs come from our path, our journey in life. And our beliefs are what feed our fears or what squash our fears. So if you look where you're sitting right now and you find the farthest wall that's in the room you're at, and you go from that wall to where you are now, that's your path in life. And we use it as a filter that quick. Gavin DeBecker wrote a book years ago called The Gift of Fear. And when I was a young female traveling by myself, the safety coordinator at work gave it to me. And in a nutshell, Gavin DeBecker trains FBI, CIA, Navy SEALs, Special Ops, Army Rangers, corporate security. And what he says is we don't listen to our intuition. We put logic over it. And we let the left brain have too much power. And he says every single body has a fear language. And I help my clients when they identify the fear, just like I asked Lisa, is where is she feeling it? Okay, what does it feel like? So that we are aware when that fear starts creeping back in, that we can get it under control based on the relationship change we've had. So, our head rules. That's where all the knowledge is and all the logic, but our gut, that intuition is what makes the decisions. And so there's both the head and the gut when it comes to fear. And here's what happens is, so we look at something, we think we have fear, we're trying to put logic. We put that through our filter, and the filter is our biases. And then we make a decision, good, bad, fear it, don't fear it. Okay? And so that's where our biases come into this. They're our filter, our screen. So an example of how quick it works. Those of you who don't know me, as soon as you got on Zoom and you saw my face, you immediately, that filter in life, you ran me just a split second through your filter in life and you made a decision based on what you saw. That decision you made is correct for your path in life. It is incorrect for you and I here. Okay? So that's how quick it works, and that's where our beliefs come in. And that's why fear can be so strong. And many of you, many have read Crucial Conversations, where this model comes from. You know, the stories we tell ourselves. So I'll go back to Lisa, and she's going to see or hear something about her 9-month program, and the story she's going to tell herself is, no one's going to sign up. No one will sign up. And that story triggers a feeling, and feelings trigger actions. And that's why it's important to ask our clients in this wall of fear is, how are they acting? How are they behaving? So that you can adjust that along with them. Okay, so there's 5 truths on fear. And this is great. As long as you're vertical and you're breathing, fear's never going to go away. Okay? The only way to get rid of fear, or the fear of doing something, is to go out and do it. Okay? And so here's what they say is the only way to feel better is you have to do it first. So the doing comes, and then the feeling comes afterwards. Not only are you all afraid of the unknown on this call, so is everyone else. And we often make ourselves believe that the unknown is unknown because we get fogged in the muck of life. And then pushing through fear is less frightening than living with the underlying fear that comes with feeling helpless, that fear of carrying that fear. So I had a gentleman in my office yesterday, and we have been working on his wall of fear. And yesterday he had a breakthrough, and he said to me, Krista, I'm 6'3", I am 285 pounds. And this fear has been twice my weight for about 3.5 years. And he said, after I left your office last time, he goes, I literally felt 100 pounds lighter, that I had been carrying this with me. And that loss of weight from his perception has changed. It's like a perspective change that we do in coaching when we change perspectives. He's looking at things differently. The lens through which he sees the world is much different. So one of the things that Susan Jeffers talks about with the key to dealing with fear is it starts out as pain and it starts out heavy, but we can turn it into power. And we turn it into power by changing our relationship with it. So what I couldn't figure out how to show you on the call today is the next step that I would do with Lisa. One of the next steps is we really get into detail about that fear. We really get into detail about where she's carrying it in her body and what's the result of it and what's her body's fear language. Because this fear may never go away, but it should get smaller and she'll be able to deal with it. And so when she's got that feeling again, she can recognize it. And so how do you take it from pain to power? And how do you have love and power, or ownership and power go together? And so I talk about what gets in the way. And it's about how we talk to ourselves. It's about the relationship we have with ourselves. And many of us, we know this. But it's easier said than done when that emotional cocktail gets flowing in our body. So it's what we say to ourselves, what we hear, and what we believe. And we have to choose which filter through which we're going to see and view this fear. And as you can see here, it can be very different. So, we look at this, and we've had some wonderful storms lately across the United States, and I've been blown away by some of the photos that are taken. But when you look at this, it's this awesome, massive cloud. And it looks like it has this power. So what I often do with my clients is we go to the yoga mat. Because to turn them, to help them transition, they have to change their relationship with this emotion. And I believe that our emotions, which fear is one of them, they're like toddlers. Think about if you've had children. When they were toddlers, all you had to do is grab your phone, and the first thing they do is came and grab your leg, and they wanted your attention. And what do we have to do? As parents, we simply look down, we go, just one moment. We recognized them, and they were happy. So imagine Lisa right now laying on a yoga mat. We go through a little mindfulness to completely clear her body. Then she comes back in. She walks back into her body, the shell of herself. and meets this fear that no one will sign up. And she will describe it in excruciating detail. Some will even tell me what it smells like. And I will have them walk closer and have them describe how this fear, this mass they've described, has changed. And then because fear and love and fear and hope can't live together, in some way I would ask Lisa to show her fear some love or some hope, or to introduce herself. And 90% of the time the clients will say, the fear just shrank. This mass shrank, or it changed colors. Or it's now smiling at me instead of laughing at me. Just like emotions with toddlers, you recognize it. And it's about changing your relationship. So I would ask Lisa, hey, now that you've either touched, shook hands, hugged, made a caring comment to this emotion, this fear, and it has shrunk, now you get to ask it a question. And I just watch their body as they're asking the question, and they do it internal. I don't hear the question. And then when they're ready, I say, okay, before you depart, make one comment to this fear. And they'll make a comment. Now remember, they're in this vacant shell of their body. I have them start walking back out the way they came in, and turn around one time and wave or say hi or say thank you, and walk right back out of their body. Spend some time taking some deep breaths, and when they're ready, they open their eyes. And this cloud that you see here, that can it can ignite such fear when you see it coming, that when it passes and you see the other side, we see it as a thing of beauty and a thing of awe. And it's in that moment that they transition from a great fear to changing their relationship with it. Now, the fear will never go away. Most often, it'll never go away. As long as we're vertical and we're human and we have a heartbeat, we're going to have fears. But because Lisa has understood her body's fear language, because she's changed her relationship with it, it now does not have as much control in her life. And in comes the question now, if I no longer fear blank, what will I do? And they start changing their behavior. Okay? So again, this sometimes is over the course of several coaching sessions. It depends on how deep-rooted the fear is, how heavy it is, how vulnerable the client wants to be in that moment. And that's why I felt the importance today of having you go through this, because it can be a very heavy 1 to 3 sessions with your clients when you get to this point. And so one of the next things we do is we change the language, which most of you have heard, program your subconscious. And I have them speak out loud, because I'm a big believer that when the words come out your mouth, they go back in your ears, and your subconscious gets a double whammy. Because whatever's in our subconscious is going to find a way to express itself, and words are important. And so I have them change their words around the fear and change it to power. And so we talk about affirmations. And so when a client is struggling to change their language, you see the headshot on the left. They're still stuck in that old way of thinking. When they change their language and they talk to themselves out loud, they can transition to the new mindset and reprogram their subconscious in a way that they want. Now, 30 seconds, 15 seconds on this slide, it sounds easy. It's not. And I have found as a coach, and I would say a more aggressive coach that says, great, you want to hire me? Giddy up, let's go. Let's walk this journey together. I have really, really had to understand that sometimes my clients' fears trigger emotions in me. And sometimes one of those emotions is patience. Because my whole life I struggled from, sometimes I want it more for you than you want it for yourself. So I really have to keep myself in check. And you will too, because this journey absolutely has to be theirs. And when they come out the other side and they turn around and they look at that big, massive storm cloud, it's a thing of awe and beauty. And they're in a very different place. And so one of the big things that I found in my practice is get rid of the word but, or words like maybe, or could be, and put in the word and. So example, maybe if I stay with Lisa, is how does Lisa take what she learned in this mindfulness activity and move herself forward and still live with this fear? And so when you say and, you tell your brain, we got a problem to solve, and it will help you solve it, versus saying, I either have to deal with this fear or I have to shut down my program. When you say or, you're going to get one or the other. When you say and, your brain is going to go, woo, we got a problem to solve. Let's go. Okay, so you change the path in your mind. I call it neurological road construction, because we got to tear up the old pathways and create new ones. Okay, so before I go to that one, any questions that are popping in your head right now? All right, if they do, oh, go ahead.
No, Krista, it's Laura. It has more to do with reflecting on the work with my clients, and what you said about being patient. It has to be their journey. Patience with clients was a really great reminder, serendipitously, no matter what.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that. And you know, Darcy's on the call. I'm sure she's a true testament to the fact that that's one of the things I had to work on in my coaching certification. Is I get really, really excited for clients and their journey and their transformation, and I have to be very careful I don't get out ahead of them.
Yeah, I'm relating.
Thank you. All right, so here's what I'm going to tell you is when it comes to your clients, they got to own it. Behavior, their growth, their leadership, their confidence, their success. And when I say 1 to 3 sessions, I'm at session 5 on one client right now. But she's owning it, but she's not owning it at a speed that I would own it, but that doesn't matter. She's owning it at her speed. And this is all about relationship management. And I always say the first relationship you need to manage is a relationship with yourself. So you with you before you can go you with others. And then, of course, I love John Maxwell. You know, the most important person you'll ever talk to is you. Be careful what you say, because you hear yourself all day long. And the last thing, kind of in closing, is fear is a gift. It is here, and Gavin DeBecker will say, fear is a gift. It is here to wake us up and make us safe. But if we continue to carry it on and we don't deal with it, it's not our friend. So what I say all the time is I absolutely love Milky Way candy bars. I love them. 1 a month, no big deal. 1 a week, I might start having some issues around the waistline. 1 a day, even if it's fun size, is going to become an issue. Okay? Fear is a gift if we deal with it. And if you can recognize it with your clients and help them deal with it. So I will close as I always close, and then we're going to open it up for questions that we as choosers have the right to choose. But once the choice is chosen, the choice controls the chooser. Meaning, if you choose to say, yeah, I've got some fears, but I'm not going to deal with them. That maybe is a little deep, a little heavy for me. Your actions will follow your thoughts. If you say, ooh, hey, maybe I should deal with a couple fears on my wall so that I can then help clients, your actions will follow your thoughts. Okay? So we as choosers have the right to choose. But once the choice is chosen, the choice controls the chooser. So choose wisely. All right. Here's where we have some questions for you. And for those of you that are on the phone, you can all unmute now. I would like this to be interactive. For those of you that are on the phone, there are 3 questions that I have here for the participants. The first one, pretty simple. What competencies did you see addressed in this presentation? The second question, what about this tool, the Wall of Fear, gives you insight into how to coach differently? And it might just be how you be differently when you're coaching. And the third question is a 3-parter. What fear do you need to address? And then how will you coach differently as a result of addressing this fear? And how will you run your business differently as addressing this fear? So now's a great opportunity. Please, I'd like you all to unmute and participate in this conversation so that we can learn from each other and that I can learn from you so that I use this tool stronger in my business. Okay. So I'm going to go off. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see your faces. All right. Talk to me, coaches.
Everyone hung up. You're there by yourself.
They're all afraid.
Yeah. You know, so I can't see the questions because I don't have the worksheets, but I refresh my memory on what that first question is.
What competencies did you see showed up in this today?
So certainly the trust and intimacy, creating awareness, deep listening. You know, so let's use Lisa as the example. When you were listening to what her responses were, you weren't just listening with your ears, you were listening with your eyes and noticed how quickly she brought that paper in, right? Yeah. So saw those demonstrated loud and clear. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Now somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, jump on, please. Oh, did y'all take a nap?
Hey, Krista, this is Katie.
Hey, Katie.
Hi. The presence is one competency that I saw. Being really present with someone to partner with them, to see their fears, face their fears, understand what they are, and then creating awareness. Of like, there's my fear, it's coming at me, it's going away, kind of the awareness of my fear is not me, and just a lot of awareness.
And let's be candid, today's interaction with Lisa would not garner me a PCC level, but it's what we could do in the quick moments with what was going on. So hopefully you got out of it what you needed.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Sure can.
Oh, hey, Krista, I was talking and I just realized I was on mute and you didn't hear me. Other core competencies would be even powerful questioning. I think someone already said creating awareness, designing actions would be one, and coaching presence. I don't know if that was mentioned too.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to pull these back up because I'd like to go to the next one. So the next question is, what about this tool gives you insight to how to coach differently? Who would like to share on that?
Hi, Krista. This is Laura.
Hi, Laura.
I really liked how this activity really was a movement. I like to think of coaching people through different means of learning, and I really liked the movement of it. It also made me think like, oh, could you do this with someone who's drawing? Like drawing what it feels like, and then what would it feel like, or what would it be like if you no longer felt that way. So it just generated some different ideas to coach to different learning styles. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing that. So, every time we have a webinar, we take something away that we're going to use in our business as coaches or in our practicing as coaches. So what are you taking today?
You had mentioned, I think it was you, you really can't, so exploring just other than just the language of coaching, right? I think what you've demonstrated here is the potential and power of body and emotion in the coaching experience for that client. And so for me personally, it will be so I do more leadership coaching than anything right now, but not to be afraid to integrate some of these types of approaches in even leadership coaching, because I think there's absolutely a place for it. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And you know what, I just tell a quick story. Last year, a friend of mine called and said, hey, this business, some of the executives are looking for coaches. Why don't you throw your name in the hat? So I did. And I got called in to have a 30-minute with the CEO. And within 10 minutes, I could tell he was not interested. And so I thought, I'm pretty direct. I just said, hey, I get the sense that this isn't working and that I'm not what you're looking for. So I don't want to waste your time if that's true. And I said, but before I go, tell me what's not here for you so I can grow. And he looked right at me and he said, I want an executive coach, not a life coach. I go, okay. So I said, well, thanks for your time. I said, if you don't find anybody, call me. I've got several people in my network. He goes, okay. So I shook his hand and I just turned back to him and I said, let me leave you with one thought. Every leader is rooted in a person and every person is rooted in a life. You cannot separate the two. I said, but good luck with your coach. So that was end of January, maybe beginning of February. End of April, I get a phone call. And I'm looking at my phone, you don't know the number, but I answer it. And he says, hi, Krista, this is so-and-so. I go, how are you? He goes, good. He said, I'd like to buy you coffee. When do you want to come to Milwaukee? And I said, make it tea, and this time you get to come to Lake Country area. So he laughed. We met for coffee. We sat down to talk. And I said, okay, where are we going here? He said, well, every time I was talking to my wife about the coaches that came in, your name kind of creeped in. And finally my wife says, well, who is this Krista Morrissey? And what is she? And he goes, well, she's a life coach and I need an executive coach. And he goes, as all strong wives do. She looked at me and she said, you're an idiot. You should hire her. He says, so I'm here to hire you. And I tell you that story because even in leadership, even at the executive level, you cannot separate the leader from the person. You cannot separate the emotions. Mm-hmm. Now, some of this activity does not belong in an executive office. It may not fit.
Right.
But the mindset that our emotions permeate every part of our being, and we're human. So let's jump to the third question is, what fear do you need to address? And how will that help you coach differently and run your business differently? You're all looking at your wall of fear. I can see you. What fear do you need to address?
Krista, this is Laura again. I just wanted to share that as I'm looking at my wall of fear, what you said before about the fear doesn't ever go away, but you can shrink it and make it manageable. Right. And I envisioned like the actual wall coming down, and I'm like, when the wall's up, I can't get through those bricks. But if we tear down the bricks, I can maybe eventually just step over it. Like, I have strategies to deal with it, and I think that's a really great way to explain that to clients and what you're doing with them.
Yes, thank you for that. That is excellent. I had a client once ask for a pair of scissors, and we had her wall of fear hanging out. She cut it out. And she said it's like now she was not she was not trapped in this room. It's kind of like opening a window. And we went after the next 3 fears in half the time we went after the first one.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, so it's a beautiful day outside. At least I'm looking at the clouds blowing by. It's June. We've got about 12 minutes left. I want to just bring you to the end again, and just say, choose wisely how you use this in your practice. You all can reach out to me. My information is at the bottom of the slides. You know how to get me in LinkedIn, email, through ICF Wisconsin. If you want to talk about this at a more in-depth level, if you want to prep before a client, if you want to debrief after, if you have a fear you want to go after, you have access to me. So just reach out. And I wish you well with this tool. Don't expect perfection. It doesn't happen perfection right away, but it's more about following the journey of the client, and you'll learn how to use it. So thank you for joining me today. Have a great summer. We're off next month, and I am going to turn this back to Laura.
Thank you. Krista, we're getting a number of thank yous from folks on the chat and so forth, and great webinar. This has been transformational.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, as far as, ideas and where to go with the coaching, I think we're probably all synthesizing and making our own connections very obviously, but I can't say enough. And you mentioned at the beginning when I asked you about this, are you sure? So sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Yes. So appreciate it. Thank you everybody for being with us today. Spread the word. For those who missed, who please go out onto our website, the the ICF Wisconsin website, and pick up on the recording through Meredith's help. And we will see you, let's see, here we sit in June, for our next session in August with Marsha Reynolds on EQ in coaching.
Nice.
Well done. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Have a great afternoon. So long.
Bye.